Hello! It's the A to Z podcast. Zach Jackson, Andre Knott, at Akron Jackson, at Dre Knott on most of your favorite social media platforms. Facebook.com/A to Z podcast, A to Z podcast.com. Easy for me to say. Click that purple podcast button on your fancy iPhone. Subscribe, download, share, leave us a review, all of that stuff. Thank you guys for listening, for sticking with us as we go through the crazy schedules and for asking for more podcasts and all that. Thank you to Scene, to Honeymoon Grill, to American Fireworks, 3 places that have been with us for a long time. It feels like spring out there most days. I know it's supposed to snow on the day baseball officially begins, and we'll get to that. But American Fireworks always open, and it is the season. So everybody's ready to bust out. Everybody's ready to have the family over, have that cookout. American Fireworks in Hudson, and always open at AmericanFireworks.com. Dre, good morning.
Good afternoon. Good evening.
Yes.
How are you?
So
It's
if you're new
in
here,
Ohio and the sun is out.
yes. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not new here, we talk NFL and Major League Baseball and college basketball, and sometimes we venture into life. One thing I guess that I forget about that we talk more, and I don't know. Anyway, here's what I wanted to say. About 5 weeks, Andre and I speak via text every single day of our lives for what, a decade?
Every day. Yeah.
15 years.
Over a decade now.
Right.
Yeah.
We only live 20 minutes apart, but we see each other, like even in a non-pandemic year, the times we actually see each other are probably counted on one hand most years.
Handful.
Right?
Yeah.
And we do talk on the phone when we have like real business to talk about, because we both have the same kind of old school philosophy that texting is what it is. Anyway, I've already screwed this up twice the way I wanted to present this. But what I'm trying to say is my iPhone is set up probably a lot like yours, in that you get the preview of whatever text or notification that you've gotten. So when it comes from Andre, and I can tell just by looking at the first couple lines that it's an image or it's something that he copied and pasted, I know it's not anything urgent, and if I'm multitasking or dealing with something else or just laying on my ass, quite frankly, I can put it aside. So about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I was doing something. I actually had 2 computers going. I was on a Zoom. I was writing some stuff. I was trying to set up another interview, and I see this text, and I can clearly tell that he's copied and pasted from someone else's text. So 15, 20 minutes go by. I open up. I look, and it's basically a text from the man who's going to be, and I don't know this man yet, but he's going to be the coach of Andre's son in baseball. And I'm paraphrasing here, but it basically says, "Mr. Knott, my name is Coach so-and-so. Just letting you know we've dispersed the teams. We're all set. We'll start on this day." And I was very excited to see that I'm going to be coaching your son. But tell me if it's scary or not that my second thought right after that was, oh, my God, Andre and Zach are going to drag me on the podcast.
The God honest truth. He's DMing me back and forth, and the second thing he's worried about, not coaching my son, not any of that stuff, is, oh, shit, now I got to deal with them talking about me on the podcast. And I was like, dude, you're fine. I go, the Zach may show up with a couple beverages. I go, you may have to deal with that, but you're not going to have to deal with anything else. Don't worry.
It was one of those things, too, that, like, whoever the next person I talked to that night, I told him that story, and we died laughing, and then I forgot. And then, like, a week later, I think I went golfing, and we were just sitting around the parking lot bullshitting. That's what I'm best at. I know that'll shock you. And I was like, hey, I got a story for you guys. I wanted to make sure I told that here on the podcast.
I'm glad you brought that up, because it's funny, because at the time, like, I don't think about that stuff. Like, I live 15 minutes from where I grew up, like the house I grew up in. I try my damnedest to stay grounded as I possibly can, because there's no reason not to be grounded, no matter how much money you don't make or have, and what your job is. And I literally, and I guess it's on purpose, as Zach kind of said, I literally hang out and deal with the same people for the most part that I did 20, 30 years ago. Like, I'm pretty much, so when I get a message like that, I'm almost embarrassed. I'm like, geez, because I want my kids to have a normal life. And I know that, there's some people that kind of know, like, I think I have a neighbor right now. This is great, because the pandemic has made so much shit weird. I got a neighbor who I don't think he knows what I do. But I'm sure he's trying to figure out how my black ass lives here and never leaves. So when I saw that message, and I think I was in Arizona. I just got to Arizona when the coach was sending the message. And the guy was great, and I look forward to it. And if he can't coach, he knows what'll happen. We'll talk about him. But I felt bad for AJ because I'm like, damn, AJ's already like the guy isn't even worried about coaching AJ. He's worried that we're going to talk about him on the podcast. And then I was like, AJ will be good. He's a good runner. And the guy's like, oh, I've already seen AJ play soccer. I know what we're getting.
Yeah,
I'm like, all right.
His worries about AJ will shift soon because AJ will be taunting and AJ will be prancing, right? And he'll be making demands. Yes. So
he just did it. They're outside playing like freeze tagger right now, and he was hiding under our deck, and the kids couldn't find him. And when the kid walked out, he jumped on top of our table on our deck and started dancing in front of me. He's like, he can't find me. And I was like, I hope your ass falls down. And that's out of the Andre Not Senior book. Knock their asses down when they feel good.
So where do we start here? The tournament's on. We're coming to the end. We had absolute madness in the first weekend. Ohio State losing to a 15. A lot of the big boys didn't even make it. A lot of them went down. But here we are, an hour or two from the Elite Eight starting, and we're probably going to get 3 number ones in, right? It's probably going to be Michigan-Gonzaga on Saturday night, which would be an absolute heavyweight fight. Baylor's right there lurking on the other side. I know you were in Arizona for part of it, but that it was a different schedule this year with the time. So I'm assuming you still got to see, maybe not everything you would have normally got to see, but I'm assuming you got to see most of this tournament.
Oh yeah. I mean, it is, I've told you before, it is a little different. It's a little goofy. Being on, 3 hours back. And I know like right now there's a lot of conversations and a lot of people are bothered about how late the games will start tomorrow or whenever. And I get that. But after being on West Coast time for 3 weeks, for 2.5, 3 weeks, you know what it's like to wake up to 9 o'clock basketball? For some, I know there's people that listen on the West Coast and they get, they watch the NFL that early. I wouldn't like a Sunday 9 o'clock football, 9 o'clock a.m. football. I'm not a morning person, but because of spring training makes me a morning person. It was one of the most glorious things ever to wake up and have basketball on. Like, especially when you can be half awake, have a cup of coffee, rattle your brain a little bit. And it is crazy. When I am on the West Coast, I'm more of a morning person than I'm when on this time. It's the best thing ever, though, Zach, waking up to basketball. And I got out there basically when all the conference tournaments were going on. So I've basically been watching basketball more in the last couple of weeks than I did all year long. So I love it. I love it in Arizona. The good thing about the Indians and covering the Indians, Tito loves it. And Tito gets into about 18 different ways to try to win. Yeah. So the great thing about the Indians facility is like there's basketball. When I get to the facility or wherever else, there's basketball on every TV all around. So it's been enjoyable. I've watched more college basketball in the last 2.5 weeks than I did all season.
Funny you say that. It reminds me of a story that got brought up last weekend as we played a little American Fireworks Glory Days here. When I turned 21, a long time ago, I turned, and my birthday's in the late summer. But my gift from my parents was my dad and I were going to go to Vegas for the tournament, right, in March. And so, I had just started, interning for the Browns at the time. And so obviously football season wasn't going to be an option. And I was still in college, technically at least. And so when it came time to schedule the trip, we couldn't go the first weekend. We went the second weekend, Sweet 16 weekend. It probably worked out that way anyway, knowing how my dad deals with crowds. And I become the same way more and more every hour of that. Right. But anyway, this got brought up in a conversation with a couple buddies last weekend. We were out there, we were watching the games, and I remember it being Saturday morning, and they had just posted the lines for the women's tournament. And so we're standing in the sports book getting ready to, bet Syracuse, Georgetown, or whoever it was going to be. And I look up and I say, oh, it's 5-0. And I go bet the Louisiana Tech Lady Texters plus 19.5. And I remember my dad watching this, and I came back, and he goes, tell me you didn't just do what I think you just did. And I just remember looking at him going, I cannot tell you that. They covered. They lost by 19.
Oh, you are a sick dog.
No, it's been fun. I mean, I'm a basketball junkie. I love to watch it. It certainly has been different, with the structure of the games and the fact that the next two nights, the marquee games, are coming on at 9:57 on a Monday and Tuesday. Does not appeal to me.
I'm okay with that, but I know a lot of you guys aren't. And like I said, my time schedule is all messed up because I'm usually a late nighter. But when I go to Arizona for whatever reason, I wake up at 7:45 and I can't go back to sleep, and I'm a morning person suddenly. Now that I'm back here, I'm like, sweet, the good game. But aren't the West Coast teams playing like earlier tonight than the East Coast teams, which makes no sense at all?
Well, tomorrow there's three West Coast teams playing, but yes, the Gonzaga USC game is the early game. Of the two, and this is what happens when you get locked into those TV windows. I mean, look, they're used to taking the later ones, and that will certainly be the case. On Saturday, if it's Gonzaga Michigan, that'll be the main event. Well, they see Michigan UCLA on name brand appeal. That's going to be the main event. So,
for sure. Riddle me this.
Different year.
I tweeted this.
Yeah, different year for everything. I think there are certain advantages and maybe something worth exploring. Certain rounds of getting everybody in the same spot. There's times in the past, right? I know this because I covered it. A team would fly in, right, on Wednesday, play Thursday and Saturday, or even Friday and Sunday, really. And if they advanced, fly back to campus, and campus could be across the country because it's been decades since they did anything really geographically,
Makes
right?
sense.
And then have to fly back out on Tuesday to where they were going. So I think there is something to be said for maybe holding the whole Sweet 16 and Elite 8 in one place. Now, once you get back to filling arenas and they have to do it in these domes and all that shit that I don't necessarily agree with, I don't know how that works, but I think there's something to be said for that.
There's something to be said, but it ain't going to happen because money talks and we know it walks. You're right. Like, it feels more like a tournament having everybody in one place. It feels more like what these kids go through to get recruited. And I'm not a big AAU fan, but there is something about everybody kind of being – I was even watching the NIT a couple of nights ago, and like Louisiana Tech maybe. It was like cool because they were getting ready to play the next game and they were out watching like the last 5 minutes of the game before them. Like, to me, I just love that part of competition because that's the cool – like, I remember going to baseball tournaments and basketball tournaments when I was little, and you sit there and watch teams. I'll never forget being on the AAU basketball team at like 14, and Melvin Levitt was on the other team, and it was like he was on another team, a tier higher or whatever, and I'm sure Babe right now will scream out the team that it was. And I can remember all of us freaking out watching Melvin Levitt. Just before he was a helicopter in Cincinnati, he was something else out of Euclid and St. Joe's. And I remember us all sitting there like, we got to play against this guy? I've told my Nate Schinderwolf story, who I was the same age as. We were all laughing. We're at Bookto High School, and I'm like, who is this white kid with Jordan scribbled in the back of his head in red hair? And like 3 times down the court, he punches over every black dude in the court. We're all like, oh, shit, I'll take him on my team. There's something about that. There's something that I think brings out I think players like playing in front of each other. I think that's something about – I think if you really know athletes and you really have been around them, sometimes the best comes out of them when they can show off a little bit, whether it's in front of girls or whether it's in front of guys, their peers. It brings something out of the athlete that you don't see usually. So do I agree with you that this is something that I hope the NCAA reads into and sees that they can make something better out of this? Hell, I'll even go a step further. I think it would be cool if you found one place and you did the whole Final Four, guys and girls, because the girls' games last night were great. I mean, it won't happen. I'm like, we're talking, this is complete fairy tale. It won't happen because they can generate more money by putting it in 6 different places. It just is what it is. But I do like, and I was going to ask you, it's just like the NFL draft. What have we learned, over this last year of COVID events that we can take going forward with us? And I think there are some things that we can see done differently that can make things a little bit better. Now,
I think we've touched on that to an extent of like, okay, things have been a certain way. So now that the world got turned upside down and the sports world was, certainly part of that, and the sports world was certainly out front and getting back, like, what can we challenge of these norms, right? And you and I haven't talked about this. Did you see the new TV contract for the NFL? Do you know the changes that are coming with that?
I mean, Thursday Night Football on Amazon, right? I think that was one of the main big
Monday night doubleheaders feels like a victory.
And I love that. Yes, absolutely.
The last week of the year, they're going to take 2 games. And, right now the marquee spot has been, can you get to Sunday night on the last week of the year? They're going to take 2 games and move them to Saturday.
That's awesome.
So I guess what I'm trying to say here is we kind of did a sharp turn there. Is like, yeah, that's going to change. I don't know. Is baseball going to keep playing 162? I don't know. NBA is not playing 82. I think the NBA is a better product without 82. We've been screaming that for years too. So yeah, no, I think a lot of things could potentially come out of this. Now there's going to be some awkward transitions. I mean, right now we'd be entering the next to last week of the NBA regular season. We have like 7 weeks left.
Right.
So
I know.
Like for us on the outside, strictly as a viewer, having meaningful playoff games all the way through June is great, right? Because it's usually a real quiet time. But like, people really going to pay attention in the meat of the summer, and what is going to be the transition? If they try to get back to that normal schedule where they start obscenely early next year, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen.
See, there's a problem with that, Z, is that, and I love basketball. I haven't really paid attention to it. I was just texting with Chico about this. I like basketball. I like NBA basketball. I'll get into it when the playoffs come back, I think. But I think it's been so much. To me, the NBA season has just been one long run-on. It's like a sentence I wrote in high school when I was trying to say I was right. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I remember LeBron winning the championship, and I feel like I took a nap, and I went and took a dump, and I took a shower, and I came back, and the NBA season was still going. So it's like, it's just, I don't have, like, right now I'm just kind of like, okay, I guess there's another game on. And maybe it's just because they had to work so close together. And you're right. Come June, when there's playoff games on, heck, even May, when everything kind of comes into picture, and it could be the NBA, like all these injuries the NBA has going on right now. You can see these key matchups, and I guess this has been going on for a while. You can see matchups like on TV or on your phone, and then you realize, 80% of the stars aren't playing. Like the Nets are a big deal every night, but when's Kevin Durant going to play? Yeah. Is Kyrie playing? Who's going to be on that in that game?
All right, hold that Nets thought. I want to say one. I could sit here and talk tournament all day, and I know people don't really want to listen to it. And frankly, we're at the end point. So,
well, I got one question to ask you about it after that. But go ahead.
Okay. Well, all right. Here's what we'll do. I want to say this, and then you ask the question. Then I'll make my Nets point, and we'll move along. We're a real smooth operation here on the A to Z podcast.
Brought to you by nobody.
Scouting at the heart is player comparisons, right? Because it's projections, and even the most talented guys, can they do it at the next level, right? And I know this from being around football scouting and to an extent in other sports for as long as I have. And sometimes you don't see the same, and sometimes you miss, and all of that. But when I watch this Mobley kid from USC, Dre, this is the easiest one ever. I mean, he is Chris Bosh Jr. Like, we need a paternity.
Wow. Yeah, the long arms.
The exact same frame. He walks like him. Can step out a little bit, but you could see, skinny right now. You can see the room to develop. Like, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like Chris Bosh's kid plays for USC.
Right. Wow. Really? That's crazy. I mean, I can see that. It's funny you say that. And now I got to go on a different tangent because you bring up I can't tell the story. Tom Reed wrote a great story in his new publication that he writes for about the Vanderbilt baseball team having probably the number 1, number 2 picks in the draft. Uh-huh. And Tom Reed now works for a Pittsburgh publication. You probably know the name off the top. I'm a Tom Reed fan. I read him wherever he goes. Doesn't matter.
Sure.
But it was funny listening to him read because they have 2 of the best pitchers in baseball. And one of them's last name is Rocker, whose dad was Trace Rocker that played for the Atlanta Falcons, I believe. And the other one is Al Leiter's son. And they're both, so they both come from good families. And Tom's question was, since the Pirates have the number 1 pick, and I love these conversations because as you talk about scouts and to kind of make your point about scouts, Tom Reed went to a bunch of scouts and was like, hey, does this make it easier to judge who the number 1 pick is? Because they're the number 1 and number 2 starting pitchers for Vanderbilt. They pitch back-to-back, same competition every weekend. So a scout basically can go wherever Vanderbilt is this weekend, and on Friday night see Kumar Rocker, on Saturday night see the other kid, and he's like, so this would be an easy evaluation, right? Well, one of them's 6'4", 240, and the other one's like 5'11", probably 6 foot. And most of the scouts were like, well, yeah, because they're going against the same competition, the same lineups, same atmospheres. And then another scout, which I loved, was like, actually, he goes, I don't like it. It was a really good situation to see how scouts, because as you said, you compare, like that's how these guys go back to their teams, whether it's football, basketball, or baseball. You compare over the long time. This guy, I think, could be like this guy. And it was interesting to hear how scouts with Tom went back and forth on what they thought would help figure out who the number one pick is probably Rocker. He's freaking huge, and he throws 98, 97 with the slider. But this other kid ain't far behind. It was a Tom Reed story. So you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Tom has always been elite at finding, the sliver of information and a different way of going about a story, and he did a great job on it. It's a pay site, so don't be tweeting me and bitching about having to pay for it. Stop being freaking never mind. I ain't gonna tell people about their money.
Well, listen, if you listen to this podcast, you should be following Tom Reed to start with. He's just a great he's just a dude's dude, and he's hilarious. He once drank me under the table, and then he followed that up 19 times later when we actually knew each other. But
he can drink beer like there's nobody's business.
Oh my God, he is the LeBron James of fucking drinking beer. There is no doubt about it. And he's aging a little bit, and sometimes taking 4 to 6 weeks off is good for him. But we know when it comes around, whether it's in May or June or July, we know he's going to be there at the end.
Tom Reed going to be there in the end, baby. That's what he do. All right. I love it. He's going to die. I can't wait to my phone blow up.
This is from the useless information bank, as you brought those guys up. And I didn't think we'd ever get the chance to talk Vanderbilt baseball. Kamar Rocker, I guess I was going to say this, but a lot of people probably don't. So when you're a baseball prospect, you have to choose. If you choose the college route, the NCAA route, not the junior college route, you either have to come out after high school or you have to stay at least 3 years. That's how it goes. So this Rocker kid goes to Vandy as a true freshman, and he's just a freak. He is big, he's athletic, he throws hard, but he's a pitcher too. And he led them to the College World Series, and college baseball gets no burn on the national level at all until the very end. It's starting to. But he was this big story, and then of course it was like, well, he would be the number one pick this year because they have the draft during the College World Series, right? Right. And that's a point of contention that I have too. But anyway, so he was a known commodity, and then last year college baseball gets canceled, at the very early stages, so he's still a year away. Well, this year he's their number one. He pitches on Friday nights. It's occasionally on ESPNU or even ESPN2. I mean, SEC Network makes a big deal. Anyway, I'm not claiming to watch it all the time. But Al Leiter's kid has emerged too. And Vandy gets, the best of the best. And their program's been good for a long time.
Awesome program.
The other night, the Leiter kid is their number 2 pitcher. He has a 100-pitch no-hitter into the 8th inning. They take him out because he's on a 100 limit for his future.
Right. But he had thrown a no-hitter the week before. Yeah. But he had thrown a no-hitter a week before. He's gone like 18 innings. He's gone like 16 innings, I think, without giving up a hit right now. And he's the number 2.
It's absurd. It's absurd.
It is. The other thing off of what you're talking about, there are so many people that hate how professional baseball is going right now that there is a comeback of, like, people are interested in college baseball. There's a small few, and I follow them on Twitter. But like you just said, you got to know the station still. It's not college basketball. It's not college football. But Zach, there are some people that just really love baseball, like the devil. I almost said his real name. We both know. We know a lot of baseball people before I even took this job. There is a underground swelling, maybe not here in the Midwest, but I know in the southern states where baseball is more popular, I guess, there are a lot of people getting into the SEC network and watch it because I forgot. The king of college baseball is none other than Tom Hamilton. All you got to do is start listening on April 1st, and I'm sure he'll break down. But, I mean, Arkansas, if you saw Arkansas's complex, all those SEC complexes, LSU, college baseball is having a big run right now, television-wise. And I think the SEC network and all these networks that carry it, I mean, what the hell else are they going to sell, Zach? They got to sell this. And now you have some players that we know. Like you said, you got, Rocker is a known commodity. There's a kid down in LSU, last name Hill, who's a pitcher. There's some guys that are making you watch. All right, let's go back to the tournament because this well-oiled machine is all over the place, and this is how we do it. I got to ask you this, though. And I tweeted it last night. And I'm speaking for myself, and I think I can put you in this, and I think I can speak for most of America. We went into this tournament, and I heard Scott Van Pelt and everyone else. We all were doing this all year long. Big Ten best conference in basketball. They just beat the hell out of each other. They're going to get 8-9 teams into the tournament. And I was even saying, watch a team like Iowa get in the right region and not have to see somebody from the Big Ten and roll through. I thought if they were healthy, I thought they had a chance to do that. I really did. I thought Rutgers, even though they had some issues with outside shooting at times, I thought they were a team that would go far once they got into the tournament just because of their setup. Ohio State, hey, they needed my man from Jackson, by the way. Kyle Young was missed. And I think the Big Ten tournament hurt the Buckeyes. But I guess my point, too, is to shorten this. We all thought the Big Ten was the best conference in basketball and beat the hell out of each other, when in reality, it was the Pac-12. And, Zach, before I let you answer, I watched the entire Pac-12 basketball tournament because I had nothing else to do when I was in quarantine in a hotel room, and I just didn't see what we're seeing right now. So what did all of us miss, not just me?
Well, the NCAA tournament's a different beast, and I'm not using that as an excuse for how several of the Big Ten teams performed, right? They played a full season in the Pac-12, and Oregon State finished 9th. Like, that was earned, right? They clearly are a well-coached team that's gotten hot, and they're a remarkable story because, they're at 12 doing this. They were an auto bid. I mean, UCLA is coming out of the first 4. That's a remarkable story. That's usually for the VCUs and LaSalle's of the world, not UCLA, a true blue blood, right? Going back 50 years. I think what happened in the Big Ten is their circumstance. First of all, Michigan State should have beat UCLA in the first 4 and didn't finish the game, led the whole game and didn't finish it.
True. That's true.
Iowa, to me, was always completely overrated and terrible on defense, and they ran into an Oregon team that was really good and absolutely big boyed them from start to finish.
Yes.
And then to see Oregon turn around and get absolutely big boyed from start to finish by USC really opened my eyes to how good USC really is. So I think, and I'm glad you brought it up in this realm where we talk about sports and perception and what's going on. I just think the Pac-12 has been off the radar in the 2 major sports for several years now. Their TV deal has not helped with that. USC football going from national power and must-see TV 15 years ago to just another program has not helped with that.
Great point.
And so we have perceptions, right? And we don't think about it. And now, anybody outside of the Oregon State locker room that says that they would have been playing even last weekend, let alone tonight, to go to the Final Four is lying to you, right?
Yeah.
But that is the magic of the NCAA tournament. Matchups matter, styles make fights, right? And each weekend is a mini tournament. So if you're playing well and you get hot, you can make it. And we'll always remember the Oral Roberts, the Oregon State. I mean, let me tell you this. Anybody out there, name an NBA player from Oregon State. Gary Payton. Who the hell's number 2? Because I don't know. Do you know? I mean, you're the one that sat here at the beginning of this pandemic and put on an absolute Alex Trebek, Zach Jackson, Rain Man level show with these cards, these players from the 80s. Can you name another NBA player from Oregon State?
From Oregon State, I know one too, and I just can't. I mean, the funny thing is the other 2 people I thought of were Chad Ochocinco and Derek Anderson, and neither one of them put on basketball uniforms. But I can think of Oregon State. There is somebody else, and I just can't. His son went there too, I think, Gary Payton Jr., didn't he? Or the third or whatever. Damn. Just hold that.
Yeah, and I guess he did have a cup of coffee in the league. So, yes.
He's still in the WNBA. He's in the D League or whatever they call it right now. He's still trying to get in. But let me ask you this. And this is asking because I was in Arizona. And I love this conversation. Hopefully people stay with us. Did the Pac-12 not get love? And everything you said, I think I agree with. But Arizona and Arizona State, Ryan Isley, your favorite coach, coaches at Arizona State, they were terrible this year. And I think maybe that killed my perception when I was in Arizona listening to the radio there. They hated the Pac-12 tournament because they're 2 teams, that usually are 2 of the better teams in the Pac-12. Even when Arizona State's not good, they usually have a couple players or some athletes, right?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have any. I don't know why. They didn't have anything. Did that play into the perception that we didn't see Arizona have one of those teams? Because let's be honest. And when it comes to football, you're right. We think of USC, the run they had. When it comes to the NCAA tournament, and I think Pac-12 over the last 25 years, Miles Simon, Bibby, Richard Jefferson. Like, they always have a team that's good in March. They didn't this year, Zach.
Well, Sean Miller's been there a long time now, and they never made the Final Four.
Right.
You know, for all that money for no results, right? The anti-Cam Newton. I think that it does have something to do with it. Yes. And like, look, these were good teams in the Big Ten. Like, let's just be honest. Ohio State, Michigan was the game of the year in the regular season. It was on Sunday afternoon on CBS, and it was freaking high level. I think you could make the case that Ohio State never fully recovered from that day, right?
Great point. Yeah.
Illinois was really good and picked a bad day to have a bad day against a team that was sitting on them and attacked their weaknesses and made them look silly. So, you know, I think if you look back, we go through this. And a lot of time in football, this conference sucked. We'll look at the bowl games. Well, who opted out?
Right.
You know, who thought they should have been in the playoff? Who should have done that? So, you know, health of the league and all that. I'm glad this happened. Anytime Bill Walton stays in the news cycle and we get to hear more of him and from him, I'm for that. Like I said, I like the underdog story. UCLA, again, down in the first four, you know, and then last night blows the big lead. Could have been put away 3 or 4 times. Doesn't foul at the end. Gives up the shot. And then still wins in overtime. You know, part of their story, they had one of the top recruits in the country. And he was going to be their point guard. And I don't know. He signed there. I don't know if he enrolled in school. I want to say he actually was enrolled in school and then went to the G League team. Like,
oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. And so there's something to be said there for maybe the magic of the team, right? Happening.
Right.
So, it's just a fascinating time in sports. And
it really is.
The one thing I left out of the Mobley thing, because we've had this, I remember R.J. Hampton was back in the news the other day because he got traded at the deadline. I remember us having this discussion more than a year ago of, I'm not those guys, I'm not their dads, and I'm not in their wallets. But I just think for more reasons than recognition, but recognition being the one. Like, you get so much out of this NCAA tournament experience. And I just think now,
the college experience, shit.
This Evan Mobley, people are actually going to have seen him play now, Dre, right? Wherever he goes, there's going to be something to be excited about because they saw him get in the NCAA tournament and crush people. And now, tomorrow, he goes against Gonzaga, this supposedly unbeatable machine, right? So, we'll see. I think there's something to be said for that.
No, there's definitely something to be said for that. And I think that's up for a whole nother podcast because I don't disagree. And I hate to be the old golly, because if you guys listen to this podcast, you know that I'm not a big fan of the NCAA business side of things. But I think as a person, I mean, let's be honest. You know, everybody can talk about grades and what your grade point average was in college, and ours was nothing to be brag about. It's growth as a person that you go through. I mean, baseball. I watched this in baseball. There's a big difference in a kid that was drafted right out of high school and you throw him right into minor league baseball. You put him on a bus and travel him around the country and tell him to learn how to live off of $400 a week compared to the guy that went to college and was, and still was somewhat protected by, the university and the university experience. Look, I've got friends that didn't go to college at all that have turned out fine. And I've got friends that went to college that are complete idiots. Most of them both are idiots. But there is some maturity and some life lessons learned from going to college. And then when you throw in going to a tournament and being in a big tournament and having all eyes on you and carrying a team, absolutely. Now, it's easy for us to say that we watch, because I could very easily, if we really want to do point counterpoint, I could say, well, yeah, Zach, but look who the rookie of the year is in the NBA. He didn't play one college basketball game,
Well, each case is different, sure. Right.
So I love that conversation. One more thing I got to throw out to you on the NCAA tournament. My man John Tellitz, who I love to death, he saw me tweet that out last night, and he went back and listened to a podcast by Myron Metcalf, and he said the first round pick since 16 in Big Ten is much lower than several other conferences. He says since 2016, Big Ten has had 12 first round picks. Last year, the SEC had 12 kids picked. 6 of them were first rounders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I think that's a salary cap question. I think. I mean, look, Ohio State's good, and every kid I think is coming back except C.J. Watt, or at least is eligible to come back, right?
Right.
I don't know that there's a draft pick on that team.
No.
Liddell gets drafted, but I don't know that he's a first-round pick.
No, I don't either. I think he's a player. I think he still needs to develop. But yeah, what you said is right.
Yeah, I mean, look, Michigan had that run. Like Xavier Simpson, just an incredible player, but not an NBA player.
No.
Yeah, there's something to be said for that. Now, when you talk SEC, Kentucky skews those numbers. I mean, they've had guys who picked in the first round that didn't even play for them, right? But Florida's had guys.
They got guys off the bench.
Now Alabama's getting guys. Hopefully, Alabama can keep this coach away from Texas. We'll see.
I can't believe we're going to bring up Vanderbilt twice in one podcast. But Vanderbilt's basketball team's interesting, man. Like I got into it because of the writer that covers the Titans. I had him interview. I interviewed him before the Titans Browns, and he writes great for the Athletic, and I can't think of his name, so I feel bad. But it's a Tennessee writer. He wrote an incredible story on Stackhouse, coaching there, and how and having Scottie Pippen's son, who's a legit player, but just how hard it is to win at Vanderbilt because of it's not an SEC basketball school,
right?
But Scottie Pippen's trying his damnedest to do it, and we'll see. We shall see.
You come to the A to Z podcast, we talk about Kumar Rocker, and we get on Google, and I can tell you that AC Green went to Oregon State.
Oh, the Virgin?
The Virgin.
See, kids, you got to Google that. AC Green was playing in the Showtime Fast Breaking with Magic Johnson, and he was a virgin.
Here's how sad I am. So I say that. Can you name one? So I start thinking, and I'm like, I think Benoit Benjamin went there. So I Google Benoit Benjamin College as you're talking, and he didn't. He went to Creighton. So then I Google Oregon State players in the NBA, and there was a guy named Corey Benjamin about 20 years ago at Oregon State, and I somehow remembered. I mean, it's just sad. I need to get out.
Yeah,
it's
that
really
is sad.
pathetic.
That is sad. But that's the A to Z podcast in a nutshell. We would rather go off and show you how nerdy we are from the players in 1998 than actually tell you about what's happening. We haven't even brought up NFL free agency. We haven't brought up an MLB season that's starting in 72 hours. We could go on and on about the things that most podcasts would talk about, but we'd rather break down Oregon State basketball players.
I will say this. If you ever get a chance to go to the College World Series in Omaha, go. Don't hesitate. Yeah. Go. You will not regret it.
No.
All right, so drag out about 15 minutes. I want to say this about the NBA, and then we will talk a little baseball as we had planned at the end. I think, and again, we'll see how it holds up with summer and with whatever else. Hopefully the world itself will be getting back to normal, and everybody's going to stay healthy, and everything's going to be good in that regard. But I just think, not only from my perspective, is this the most exciting Eastern Conference playoffs in a long time, but I think it's the NBA's dream. Because you still have this super team, this favorite, and everybody's either with them or against them. And, the Nets, they clearly have some potential fatal flaws. But gosh darn, are they good. And, you've got Miami being Miami. You've got Giannis for the first time in 3 years being an underdog, right? You've got I'm an outside observer. It seems like Boston is a mess. You've got Philly, who's got the dudes, right, if they're healthy. And I think Embiid only misses another week or two. This is really, really good, I think.
You went out on? Are you there?
Yeah. Sorry, you faded out for a second.
Everything you said is right, and what kills me, tells me how far away the Cavs are.
No,
you just went through the East.
Yep.
You just went through the East, man, and look, you're right. Boston is I don't know what the hell's wrong with them. I'll take their roster.
Yeah.
Miami's Miami, like you said. Milwaukee, they're not great. They're great, I guess, but I take their roster. Cavs got a long way to go, man. They got a long, and I mean I'm not saying anything. Hey, I'll say this. We'll kill college basketball with this by leading into the Cavs and going to baseball. After everything you said about our guy from USC that we're going to see play the biggest game of his life tomorrow night, and my guy from Oklahoma State, who I'm a fan of, and you can give your comp of who you think he is too, because I have one. What do the Cavs need most out of those? If the Cavs are the number one pick, which one would you jump on the table and say, I want to make him a Cleveland Cavalier to change things?
I have not seen one thing from Cade Cunningham that makes me think he's the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah, but he's 6'7", 8", and he can control a game.
As is 68% of the NBA.
What's that?
I just think, I honestly, I almost tweeted this.
That can do that.
I almost tweeted this a week ago. I just didn't want to take on this discussion because, in fairness to the kid, I haven't seen him a ton. But when I have seen him, I've seen a really good player. other than someone declaring him the number one pick, and I don't know who did it first. I just don't see any level of accomplishment or anything that's convinced me that, yes, this is the number one pick.
Okay. Fair enough. I've seen him a lot, and that doesn't mean that I know more or I'm better. It doesn't. I've seen him more than Mobley. That's the only fair statement I can make, right? What I've enjoyed about watching him and why I could see somebody being number one, because of his size, his skill level, and maybe this is what you're holding against him, and it's fair if you haven't seen him play a lot. He dictated the pace when I watched a lot of games he played. When he wanted to be, and we remember when LeBron, we watched LeBron with it, and I'm not comparing him to LeBron. And a lot of times when you're the best player on the court, hands down, every night, it's always interesting to me to see young players kind of figure it out. Do I come out in the first 10 minutes and take 10 shots, or do I come out and try to get every guy going? The games I watched him play, Zach, he tried to get everyone else going, and then he would score. So I like that. That's my only point.
Well, that is a much deeper scouting report than I have. I'm just saying, and look, this goes to our whole, again, wider discussion. Like, we crown these kids, and I'm watching them saying, if I didn't know this, like, I would just say Oklahoma State's fun to watch. They got 3 really good players in the Big 12. That's my honest impression. I have been wrong like once before, but like that's what it was. Like when me and my cousin were drafting our teams for the NCAA tournament pool 2 weeks ago, I'll spare you the whole story, right? He said, I want Oklahoma State, and I said, you and every other idiot does there. I guarantee they don't make it out of the first weekend.
Right. I can see that. I can totally see that. And I watched them, like, they weren't as good as they were advertised. I'll say that. And I think, but once again, we're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-olds, and that's where the good teams scout, compare, and then they can go and have the right conversations to find out. I don't care who Cunningham is today. Who's he going to be in 2025?
That is another whole part of it. You're right.
Because in
what the Cavs
2025,
have
he
gotten
may be a
themselves
top
into.
5 player.
Right? Because
I know.
Like, if one of the last 7 guys that they drafted in the lottery did look like he was going to be great in 2025, the whole thing would be different. Right?
Right. And Sexton or whatever y'all want to call it, and I ain't no hater, that ain't going to work in today's NBA. One of them guys, if the Cavs are going to be good in the next 4 or 5 years, I got nothing against Garland. I got nothing against Sexton. It ain't going to happen with them two together. Not from what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I don't see 2 guards under 6'2", 6'3", being able to dominate and lead your team to a playoff victory. I just don't see it.
Yeah. No. Okay. Here's how I want to lead the baseball discussion. You were at camp for what, 2 full weeks? Spring training?
2, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So I want one impression. Whether it's a great story, whether it's just something about being back and able to see baseball, or whether it's a player that we all need to watch. Like, what stands out when I ask you for one strong impression of Indians training?
Ooh. All right. From a personal standpoint, going into the bubble and having to test and do antibody tests and all that other stuff, and just paying attention to when I could eat, how I could eat, who I could be around, it makes me totally appreciate what the athletes have had to go through that over the last year to make sports happen. It's not natural. It's not fun. I couldn't hang out with the dudes I couldn't hang out with Matt Underwood. Like, I couldn't, like, it wasn't,
right.
And I'm not complaining. I think what I'm just trying to get across for everybody that likes to bitch and moan, because that's what we do. I tip my hats to the players that have done it, because I only did it for 2 weeks. I did it for 2 weeks. I sat in a hotel room. I followed the standards the way they told me to. I don't know in my 20s if I could have done it. I'm just being honest. I don't care how much money was thrown out. Second thing off of that, being willing to do that led to, I'm going to be honest with you guys. It was emotional being able to be back around players for me. Why? Because as a reporter, and as someone asks questions to someone and tries to learn about people and tries to get emotion out of people and tries to sell to the people, who these guys are, doing Zoom fucking interviews don't do it. It just doesn't do it. Like, and the emotion I got back from the players, they were just happy. They were happy to have me in the facility. Guys were, so the first time I sat down and did a one-on-one, I think it was with Shane Bieber. I could barely put the questions together because I couldn't believe I was sitting 6 feet, 7 feet from him. You know, like, and he was the same way. So I appreciate and I'll be honest, as I went through this pandemic, you know, especially a year, you know, maybe even 10 months ago, Zach, there were days where I questioned, like, am I ever going to be able to do what I do? Like, do I got to find a different job? Do I got to figure out a different way to do my job? Because, you know, 8 months ago, 10 months ago, we didn't have a lot of answers. So we're not going to start the season with me back in tier 2, but with vaccinations and everything else, there's a good chance that we're going to have some normalcy in a month and a half. I am going to sit at my normal spot that I normally do at home games, road games. We're going to start off being at Progressive Field, but we hope, you know, like I said, in 2 months, a month and a half, that we're back on planes and we're back with the team and we're with the team everywhere they go. So that's the first impression. I need it, and I'm thankful to have the normalcy of being back to doing my job the way I do it. The best things I heard were from the coaches. I think Coach Sarby said on the air, he said, you know, he goes, as much as we miss everything else, we miss Dre busting our balls. He goes, there's nothing like hearing Dre bust my balls in the third inning for standing in the way or not sending a guy home from third. So it was cool because the players and Tito kind of said the same thing. They're like, look, as much as you're thankful for being here, we're thankful to have you. So I appreciated that. As soon as I saw Jose Ramirez, he took my hat off, threw it down, told me to get in the sun. I was too white. Tito told me the same thing. So there was that. There's nothing like getting a tan line with the mask on your face. Team-wise, I will say this. I don't know who they're going to be this year. I would say if you put a gun to my head, if we were in Vegas, I would say over 84, 85. But they're probably going to be a 500 until we find out if they can score enough. And the pitching's got, you know, it's got talent, but talent doesn't win games. Talent wins games, but it doesn't win playoff series. And we got to see. But I'll say this. The thing I'm most excited about are guys that won't be on the roster on Thursday. They do have some, and this is part of the deal. Everybody wants to cry and get rid of owners and coaches and things of that nature. I will give the Indians credit for this. There are some young dudes. There's some young pups. Gabriel Reyes, shortstop that came over in the Clevenger trade. The kid is nice. And he looks like, when you see him, he's already got the look. He's got the swag. He looks like a combination of Tatis and Lindor. He's got the tats. His arm is a rocket ship. Like, his arm is so good that I heard one of the coaches say, don't let the pitching coaches see you because they'll put your ass over there on the mound. He already thinks he should be the starting shortstop, and he acts like that. I just think that he's got star potential written all over him if things go right. Owen Miller, who came over in the Clevenger trade, second baseman, but Tito said it best. He's a major league hitter right now, and Tito basically told him, go make yourself a major league defender, because if you do, there's a job waiting for you. I wouldn't be surprised if Owen Miller's just starting second baseman next year. He can hit, just flat out can hit. The kid that came over, Jimenez, that will start at shortstop, Andres Jimenez. He looks. It's spring training, and we all know you don't make teams, and you don't make huge assumptions. Even though some T-shirt companies will make a T-shirt after you win 4 games in August. But he looks like a professional shortstop. And I think it's, and I know the first baseman situation got everybody up in a tiff. I'm not crazy about it, but the one thing I've learned in doing this job, and even doing the Browns job, worrying about the final roster before opening day of NFL or Major League Baseball will get you absolutely nowhere, because the roster never looks the same, a quarter of the season in.
Sure.
Is it fair to Bobby Bradley? Probably not. But what in sports and what in life is fair? They're going to give Bowers his last opportunity because they can. And if he sucks, they'll send his ass away, and Bobby Bradley will get a chance in Mac. If it works out great for the Indians, they've got Bobby Bradley and Bowers. So he's out of options. Should options be the reason why you make a decision on a team? No, but half y'all crying and bitching on my Twitter feed. Y'all did it. Some girl did that to y'all in high school for prom, and y'all was the second bid dibs, and y'all still said yes and went and didn't get none. So get over yourself.
So Thursday, they start, and Monday's the home opener. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, and there'll be fans at both. Should be pretty cool.
Thursday is April 1. I know that. This is like the rare time when I know what day it is and what day is actually around the corner. All right,
we need
so
sports to do that.
Can I send my tweet, or can I just say it on the podcast?
Do it. Yeah, do it. Do whichever one. I know, I chuckled. And then I saw, man.
All right, so look, it hasn't been often, and like, honestly, for all the times, and this is probably the most common question that I get about the podcast is, do you guys ever get in trouble? Or more specifically, do you worry about Andre getting in trouble with his ties to the Indians when you talk about things? And we've been open from the start that on occasion there are things he's just not going to say or not going to venture down. Sometimes I follow those up by saying nobody really cares anyway, right?
Right.
But the answer to that question more times than not is no. And again, have we said stupid stuff before and done stupid stuff? Yes. Is it just a rule of life that the more you're spitting out and the more the microphone's around, that increases the chances? Yes, but there has not ever been, to my knowledge, one time that's gone on. However, there has been a small handful of times when I have said, please don't go there. Or he has said to me, why in the world would you tweet that out? And it was cordial conversation between longtime friends who trust each other, and even when we fight, we kiss and move along quickly, right? But I have an I have an understanding in this world, and I will just say this: the one thing I'm not going to do with you guys online, especially, but anywhere, is play gotcha. You want to play gotcha on me, on whoever, even people in my field I don't like. Get a life, move on, right? We're here to watch the games. They're fun. Sure. It's entertainment, right? But so yesterday morning, I had a tweet typed up. It's still in my drafts. It's ready to go. And I texted Andre and I said, will you get in trouble if I send this? Will this cause you any harm if I send this?
Yeah. He doesn't do that very often.
And he just kind of changed the subject. So I figured I'd wait till we're here at the end of the podcast. Let me bring it up. My phone is right here.
Yes, please bring it up.
Let's be verbatim with this. And this was Sunday morning. We all know what happened on Sunday night, or Saturday night into Sunday morning when Stipe lost his belt to Francis Ngannou. Here's the tweet.
Man, he got rocked.
Here's the tweet. Stipe had an incredible, impressive, hard-to-match run. The Indians were going to trade him soon anyway.
Send it. Send it home. Onions.
I just sent it.
I mean, it's funny. But see, that's the thing. And I'm glad you brought this up. I'm glad you brought it up the way you did. Hey, look, I got a sense of humor. The Indians, they get it. I think a lot of people don't understand. I mean, look, I can't make people feel a certain way about how the Indians do business, right? I have my own feelings and thoughts. Zach has his own feelings and thoughts. I may be more informed. I may be less informed. I may not make – like I had a guy going back and forth with me on Twitter today about I can't be happy because Jake Bauers is the first baseman. And I was like, well, you got bigger problems than Jake Bauers being the first baseman if that's your big problem. I know, and I've got friends that tell me sometimes when they want to talk about sports with me, and I'm just like, nah, that ain't it. Like when they're all mad about Frankie, and I'm like, Frankie taking a nap in Game 7 of the World Series. And I was like, that's the least of my issues. I'm like, I could care less what they do when the game's not being played. I care about what they do when they're in between the lines. I think you have a different emotion towards sports not because of our jobs. I think people should know that. Our jobs play into it, but this is who Zach and Andre would be if we were school teachers or lawyers or garbage men. We've grown up around the games. His dad played in college. This is just who our friends are, all dumb jock coaches. We go to Little League in high school. I might go to the St. V baseball game right now out at Massillon just because it's the sun's out, or I may watch them play Benedict. Look, I know the St. V baseball schedule. Who knows that? They play Benedictine. They play Benedictine Wednesday, and I might go. It's going to be in Akron at a park. Like, this is who we are. So I think we just take sports way differently than a lot of other people. And I know it's a business. The Indians supposedly, I think Forbes magazine put this out. And it's it's not. We don't know if it's completely true, but it's true. Supposedly, and I'll end on this because I'm not going to tell you how to feel. But that's a funny tweet. The Indians have moved a lot of players, and I've said earlier, what team hasn't moved a lot of players? They all do. But the Indians supposedly, according to Forbes magazine, lost $20 million during the pandemic last year. It's a decent amount of money. The New York Yankees lost the most money supposedly last year at $129 million. Now, you can take that information and run with it however you want to run with it. What it says to me, Zach, is if the New York Yankees can lose $129 million and it barely phases them, and the Cleveland Indians lose $20 million and it kicks them in the balls, something's wrong with the sport. But instead, it's a lot easier to make fun of the Dolans. Hell, I don't know the Dolan situation, and I'll say this, and this is going to be the first time I get in trouble for talking about the Indians after you said all that. No, but they're business people. I'm sure they don't lose money. But it's like we can't compare our salaries to their salaries. It's apples and oranges. I lost money last year too. I lost a lot of money last year. A lot more than I ever thought. I lost more money last year than I made most years, in my 20s most years. But I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I'm still figuring out a way to do things. When I get off this call, I'm going to negotiate like a mug to try to make some more money on something else and get Zach a little bit of it too. I just think when you think of that, the New York Yankees supposedly lost $129 million last year. The Indians lost 20. And that was the least amount that was supposedly lost, according to Forbes. If you can't see the differences and the three different leagues that are being played in Major League Baseball, then I don't even think we should have the conversation with each other because we're probably talking out of two different books.
Yeah, listen, we could do, and shit, maybe we'll need to. We could do 6 podcasts on little things that baseball does wrong, right?
Right.
No one's tying you down when it comes to the Indians. I cannot wait for Tom Hamilton to be on my radio talking about college baseball this weekend while I'm driving.
Right. or him bitching about an umpire. Like, the game is the game. You just said it perfectly. Is everything perfect with the Cleveland Indians organization? No. But damn it, there ain't nothing better than a beautiful sunny day and being able to turn on the radio and listen to Tom Hamilton, or be able to have your kid going nuts in the background and you don't even have the volume up on the TV, but you see Jose Ramirez running around the bases with his helmet flying off. There's something to the everyday. We talk about reality TV. The best reality TV is sports, and I think especially baseball, because it's on your TVs for 6 months straight. There's storylines that will be built. There's storylines that will be terrible. There's players that you didn't even know, that I don't even know right now, that will become integral to your team. There are names that you think that are integral right now that we won't even mention by July. I think it's one of the best 6 months runs that you can get in anything. You can join in like my dad does and like Zach does and be into it this week and then walk away in 2 weeks and come back in July during the All-Star break and then ignore us again until October. But it's always there. And I think that's the coolest thing about baseball. And I'm glad to be a part of it. And look, whether Lindor's here, Frankie, or whether, Jim Thome is in Philadelphia and when it crushed me years ago, the beat goes on and they still say play ball at the beginning of April every year.
That's right. Baseball's back this week. We're not to the Final Four yet. The Masters is next week. Guys, it's been a long year. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Be nice to each other. Thanks for listening. Buy your fireworks at American Fireworks. Buy your breakfast at Honeymoon Grill. We do appreciate you. We always have a laugh/bitch/gossip session after this podcast. We always do. Right? And today's will only be about 3 minutes because we've run over. But, we're going to laugh our asses off that we talked about Kumar Rocker, AC Green. Tom Hamilton.
We got in all our favorites today. We got to tell you guys, without planning it, and Zach had somewhat of a plan, we got in all of our favorite side stuff that we didn't plan.
Yes,
and that's what makes the A to Z podcast.
We recorded 2 hours later than we wanted to because I had some work getting done at the house. So I had to be out for a certain time, and while I was driving, I thought I cannot wait to bring up the Evan Mobley player comparison. Right, I flipped on one of the stations and they were talking about I cannot wait to bring up how excited Mr. Anti-NBA, how I am for the Eastern Conference playoffs. The West is always much CTV, right?
Right.
We got a little Vandy baseball in. We got a little Oregon State Beavers basketball history in.
Wait, I got to check Twitter. I got to see here how your tweets gone over so far.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
Konnichiwa, Zach's Twitter.